Now let's bring in John Gong, professor of economics at the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing, to help us better understand the economic tensions between the United States and China. John, thanks very much for joining us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
We began this program with a look at some numbers from China: industrial, manufacturing, high tech, consumption, all those numbers moving in the right direction. Break it down for us. What is good about all of that, and what are you on the lookout for as far as the global economy is concerned?
Well, the latest numbers released by the Statistics Bureau for July overall indicates a pretty good picture. Overall growth is at 4.8%. At this rate, I would say the third quarter GDP growth will be somewhere between 4% to 5%. So that's pretty good. It means that for the whole year, it's very likely that China is going to book a quite positive GDP growth for the whole year, which is actually very rare among most countries at this point. Now, in terms of different sectors, I would say there are bright spots. For example, the auto sector recorded a over 20% growth, which is phenomenal in my opinion. And the ICT sector, that means computers, telecommunications, is also over 10%. Equipment sector is also pretty good. I think the weak spot is, I think, is in the demand side. I think your program mentioned that the retail sales was minus 1.1%, I think. That means that there's still some sentiment in the market that consumers are still pretty cautious about spending their money, still a little bit concerned about the future. I think this is where the government needs to step up in terms of stimulating demand, stimulating consumption.
Right.
There are policy measures they can do in that regard.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You look at these positive numbers and you termed it very weird. Is it an overstatement to say that China's economy is in such a strong rebound following the pandemic outbreak? Compare that to other nations.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the quick recovery in terms of containing the coronavirus. Typically, in a natural disaster like this, for example, historically, right after the 1918-1919 Spanish flu, the recovery was very strong in the United States as well. There was a period of over 10 years in the 1920s with very strong growth. So I won't be surprised that the economic recovery could be sort of a V-shaped recovery and recover very strongly with a vengeance right after the coronavirus. It's a matter of how quickly many countries in the world can recover. And I think this applies to the United States case as well. As long as this virus is contained, is mitigated, I think the economy can come back pretty fast.
Yeah, that's good. That's a tough road to hoe for the U.S. But talking about the United States, the U.S. is roughly 13 million jobs short of where it was in February. About 30 million Americans are on unemployment benefits, and the country's GDP shrank by more than 30% in the second quarter. There you see the graphs of all this. Now, all of that is dragging consumer confidence down. The driving force of the world's biggest economy. How could this financial fallout reflect on China's economy?
Well, I think typically when a country, an economy experiences something like this, when you have 2 consecutive quarters of economic downturn, I think it's still okay as long as it can come back quickly. If it continues to worsen like this, getting to September and October, then it's going to be more of a long-term damage to the economy. People, business is going to go belly up, and consumers are going to be very worried about spending their money. So that's going to be a more profound impact on the U.S. economy. Now, in terms of the implication for China, certainly, the export sector is going to be hurt most. United States represents about 20 to 30% of China's total exports. It's still quite a significant component of the China's GDP. And exports account for a little bit less than 20% of China's economy. So if the economy is still very weak in the United States, I think the export sector here in China is going to be badly hurt.
John, we only have about 15 seconds, but quickly, do you expect U.S. allies are going to follow Washington's lead and seek to punish Beijing with sanctions and other economic hurdles?
Well, I think Nathan put it very nicely. I think, the so-called coalition of the willing is really not very willing. Many countries that Secretary of State Pompeo has talked to They have their own economic relationships with China. For example, Australia.
Right.
China is the largest export market for Australia. So I don't think that this coalition thing is going to last very long, let alone being formed in the first place. And I think that the days of the Trump administration or White House is going to be numbered. I think he's going to be voted out by November 3rd.